Hello, everyone. A very good morning and welcome to the webinar on a cloud native approach to achieve autonomous governance. Your speakers today are Sabha, co-founder and CTO at CoreStack. He has several years of experience in building cloud solutions for enterprises. Myself, Abid, and I head product marketing at CoreStack. In the next 30 minutes, our objective is to cover these topics for you. Defining governance and autonomous governance in the context of cloud, look at the native cloud governance services offered by AWS and Azure, why a cloud native approach for governance is important, demo the cloud native governance solution from CoreStack, and towards the end, we'll answer any of your questions. Okay, so let's get started with something very fundamental. What is governance? To explain this, we have a simple analogy of the traffic behavior on the road. Without established rules and policies, the result is chaos. On the other side, with rules in place, the result is disciplined behavior resulting in several benefits, such as lesser stress and fewer accidents. So what governance means is defining policies and guardrails and continuously monitoring them to ensure that they are enforced in the right way to prevent chaotic or reckless behavior. That leads us to an important question as to what autonomous governance is. Leveraging technology to automatically enforce the requisite controls to proactively prevent chaos and the resulting problems. That's how we define autonomous governance. The traffic example that we have just mentioned, intelligent control system which understands the flow of vehicles, captures violations with a smart camera and sends notifications to the concerned parties, all can be considered as an autonomous way of governance. In fact, a lot more can be achieved with technology, especially in the perspective of preventive measures. Now, in the context of cloud, governance means establishing policies for achieving these 4 critical business benefits: frictionless cloud consumption, efficient day-to-day cloud operations, be it hybrid cloud or multiple clouds, continuous security and compliance, and avoiding cost leakages. What it means to you is you can accelerate your innovation and deliver predictable outcomes. CoreStack enables this governance automatically for your organization by enabling guardrails as per your enterprise policies and regulatory requirements, depending on the industry in which your enterprise operates. In short, our value proposition is any cloud, any service, autonomous and continuous governance. Now, the cloud service providers like AWS and Azure provide several governance services which are related to operations, compliance, cost, and consumption. For example, on AWS, we'll find certain native services like CloudWatch, CloudTrail, and on the compliance, AWS Config, Inspector, Guard Duty. Cost side, we have AWS Budgets, Optimizers. And on the consumption side, services such as Service Catalogs, AWS Organization, Control Tower. Similarly, Microsoft Azure as well provides quite a few native services for governance, like Azure Monitoring, Notifications, Azure Budget, Optimizers, Advisor, Azure Policy, Security Center, Lighthouse. But the key thing to note here is all these policies or services are disparate, and to invoke them manually is a cumbersome process. That is where automation and service chaining is an important capability to achieve a comprehensive cloud governance. And that's where our focus would be in today's session. So let's hear from Sabha as to how this comprehensive governance, leveraging the cloud native services with automation can be achieved. Over to you, Sabha.
In the enterprise world, they use multiple subscriptions, and each subscriptions are configured for various environments or for various projects or for at a department level. The hierarchy of the subscriptions are managed by organization different way. CoreStack helps in defining a governance configuration at a subscription level. Once the governance configurations are defined at the subscription level, CoreStack governance engine takes care of autonomously applying the policies and rules to all the resources that are being consumed in the subscription by using the cloud native services that we talked about. So while Azure offers Azure monitoring, how do we configure the monitoring for newly provisioned VM or newly provisioned container or newly provisioned Kubernetes or newly provisioned SQL Azure? So all these things are autonomously governed by CoreStack. Similarly, chaining these various services, like when your resource is provisioned, you need to add it to monitoring, you need to configure the backup, you need to ensure the resource naming is done in the right way, you need to add it to Azure Security Center for performing security assessment. The chaining of the services, again, is performed by CoreStack governance engine. That's why we call it as autonomous governance by using a cloud native services through a patented service chaining model. This autonomous governance is not just for a single service, it is applicable for various services offered by Azure. That's why we call it as any cloud, any service, autonomous governance, as we have the rules specific to each services and apply this to all the services whenever it is onboarded in the subscription. The similar way, the cloud native approach is followed for AWS as well. We apply the configuration at account level, and it is being applied to all the resources that runs in the account. With that, I will jump onto the demo. Any questions so far?
You're good, Sabha. You can continue.
I'm going to log into CoreStack. So now we see the 4 C's of governance: the cloud operation, compliance, cost analytics, and consumption. CoreStack provides a governance view in the 4C classification. From a compliance standpoint, it provides a cloud security posture management specific to the industry-specific compliances, including CIS AWS or AWS WAF or CIS Azure or Nest. So whenever the account is onboarded, we can select what standards that we need to assess for that particular standard. CoreStack takes care of applying all the policies that are required for assessing the controls as defined by the industry-specific standard. And similarly, CoreStack also provides enterprise-specific policies which can be mapped at the subscription or account level as part of the onboarding. And CoreStack continuously checks the violations for the policy in the account. And similarly, the cloud native security finding, we talked about AWS Inspector or Azure Security Center. CoreStack takes care of configuring these services and then configuring the resources provision in the account in Azure Security Center or AWS Inspector, and continuously scan them and get the violations and provide a consolidated view here in the compliance dashboard. And apart from providing the list of policy violation, CoreStack also provides mechanism to remediate the violations. It lists the violations and you can take actions for the violations through the recommendation option. From a cost analytics standpoint, it provides a consolidated multi-cloud view of the cloud spend. The cloud spend are grouped by various tenants or departments within the organization, and then it provides the sum of spend across AWS and Azure, and it also tracks the budget and it sends notification to the corresponding stakeholders if the projected budget is going to exceed the defined budget. So that way, CoreStack provides a proactive means to correct cost spend per account. And it provides the details of the spend in terms of tag or locations or linked account or by resource, and also provides the ability to optimize the cost by region or optimize the cost based upon moving workloads to a different location. From a consumption standpoint, it provides view of what are all the services which are being ordered, what is the workflow status, how many ops are being requested, and what is the status of each of the requests, whether it is in pending state or failed state. So all the consumption related status are provided in the consumption view. The recommendation provides what are all the resources which are violating the policy that we configured for the account or for the subscription, and then it provides corresponding remediation action for remediating the problem. And CoreStack also has a mechanism to create ITSM tickets for the identified violation, and it has a bidirectional integration with the ITSM tools like ServiceNow or Jira, where the identified violations are sent and we can track the closure, and once it is closed, CoreStack reflect the closing status again in the recommendation dashboard here. So now I'm going to, so all the data that we see here are through the cloud native model. The policy that you see here is Azure policy. The vulnerability that we have seen is from Azure Security Center or AWS Inspector. The cost that you have seen is from the data that we get from AWS billing or Azure billing. So all of the cloud native data are used to effectively govern the various cloud accounts that we use within the organization. So I'm going to showcase how we onboard the account and how we define the governance configuration. I'm going to select a different department where there are no accounts configured. Currently, there are no account configured for this particular department that I have selected, SACCT master. And similarly, there will not be any inventory item for this particular department. I'm going to configure Azure account, onboard Azure account here. CoreStack provides multiple governance configuration. Express provides all the CoreStack best practices. CoreStack best practices uses Azure best practices or AWS well-architected framework. Since we are adding Azure account here, all the Azure best practices are bundled as an Express setting. But however, if the customer wants to customize any of the governance settings, they can select custom and customize the best practices that is offered here. And it allows to select what kind of environment that we are going to use this subscription for, whether the subscription is going to be used for production or staging. Accordingly, the governance configuration is changed and then provided in the setting. And then the scope, whether this account should be available for the entire organization or within a particular tenant. CoreStack also supports Azure China or global. So I'm going to provide tenant ID here. Application ID. Application secret. So it lists all the subscriptions associated with the tenant ID that we have given. So what are the services that we want to govern using CoreStack is listed here. So we can select what all the services that needs to be governed. Once we select the services, it takes us to the governance configuration for the 4C. So the alerts and notification list all the metrics for various services that we selected. So here, each of the metrics are pre-populated with the industry standard threshold value. What are all the metrics that needs to be configured for various services that we are going to govern in the subscription? And similarly, what are all the activity that we need to monitor within the subscription? Like over here, these are all the activities that I need to monitor. So that can be selected here. I can say I want to identify any of the vulnerability assessment, any server that are removed from vulnerability assessment. I need notification, so we can select what all the activities that needs to be notified, and what are all the notification that we need, and who all we need to send notification for what kind of activity that can be configured here, and what are all the reports that we require from this account, whether we need a daily cost summary or what all the automation summary that happens in this account. All that can be configured from a cloud operation standpoint. From a compliance standpoint, what are all the tagging rules that we need to apply for the workloads that are running in this account? So we can define, it lists various tags that we need to configure for the account, and what are all the tags that need to be enforced, and what is the compliance standard that we need to follow for this account. I need to follow CIS, Azure, and NIST. We can select this compliance standard. This compliance standard may have multiple compliance control, and each of the compliance control may have multiple policies. CoreStack takes care of configuring the policy, scheduling the policy, executing the policy for all the resources that are running in the account already or that are going to be newly provisioned. And the resource lock, whether we need to apply resource lock for this resources that are running in the account. Security center, enabling security center is another configuration rule. If it is a development account, we can configure auto shutdown, ignores the start and the backup configuration. So all this can be defined as part of the configuration here. And from a consumption standpoint, what are all the preferred region that we want to consume resources from? What are all the preferred compute sizes that we want to use? So any resources that are running beyond the region is identified as violation. Similarly, any compute sizes that we use beyond this compute size are identified as violations. And what are all the golden images that we are going to consume from the self-service here? And from a cost standpoint, what is the budget for this particular account? we can do a user-defined budget definition, or we can do a auto calculation of the budget based on the past spend in this account. So these are all the governance configuration that we are doing, and CoreStack uses the cloud native services to enforce the guardrails that we define here, and then continuously check for the policy violations for all the rules that we define here. And all these rules, again, are very extendable. CoreStack follows a cloud as code approach, and it uses a connectorless model to extend services support. So any of the services that we talked about can be easily extendable, and it is easily configurable for different enterprise rules and standards. And this is the entitlements. So who all within the organization can have access to the subscription that we have? So once we define the governance configuration and do a finish here, so now CoreStack governance engine will start discovering all the services that are running in this account, and then start applying the governance rules. So we can see the discovery happening through our inventory here. And this is the Azure account that we onboarded. So we should be seeing all these services discovered into CoreStack pretty soon. And then we will start seeing all the governance rules applied. Time check, Abid, any questions?
We have 4 more minutes, Sabha.
Okay. So we see the status of the governance started. It start configuring the backup, the security center configurations. So we'll see all the governance rules applied to this Azure subscription in few minutes. So as we are running out of time, I will show some of the existing inventory. So it will start discovering all the resources and then start listing the resources here. And then it also configures the monitoring and then capture the monitoring data and then applying the optimization of threshold values for the discovered monitoring data. And it configures the backup, it applies the tags. So all the different activities that need to be performed for the virtual machine or any other services happens through the CoreStack autonomous governance. So with that, I will complete the demo and I will take any questions that we have, as we are having just 2 more minutes left.
Sure, thanks, Sabha. That was an insightful session. We just have a couple of more minutes. There are a few questions which are popping up here, but I think in the interest of time, we can take only one. I'll read this for you. How CoreStack is different from AWS config?
Yeah, that's a good question. So as we talked earlier, cloud service providers provide various services. AWS config is a policy management. It provides 2 kinds of policy. It provides a managed policy and custom policy. So there are 102 inbuilt managed policy offered by AWS, and it allows us to build custom policy through Lambda function. But whenever the account is used by a customer, configuring this policy, like what are all the among the 1 or 2 policy, what are all the policy that I need to run, configuring the config recorder and applying the rules for all the accounts that I am going to configure is a manual process. So what CoreStack does is, using a service chain model, it packages, okay, you want to follow NIST standard. For NIST standard, there are 100 controls that are required. For this 100 controls, we have to use some 150 policy. Scheduling the policy, executing the policy, configuring the policy, the entire sequencing is automated through CoreStack, and we get the output whether the resources running in this AWS account are compliant to the NIST standard or not. That is the holistic output that we get using a cloud native modeler. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks. And there's one more before we wrap up. Is CoreStack a SaaS solution or can it be on-prem if it can be integrated with Enterprise Active Directory? Can you quickly answer this?
Sure. CoreStack offers multiple deployment model. CoreStack is available as a SaaS model, and CoreStack provides a multiple identity configuration. It supports Azure AD or LDAP as identity provider. So users can configure them and use it in a SaaS model. And we also provide a dedicated deployment for enterprises where it can be configured with a local AD as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Sabha. And with this, we also come to the end of today's session. Thanks again for your time. If you need any clarifications or any more information on how CoreStack provides autonomous governance, please write to us and we'll be more than happy to have a one-on-one session with you. Thanks and goodbye. Thanks, Sabha.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your time.